other elites in Palm Beach in 1995, a meeting that Clinton had not mentioned until a 28-year-old newspaper snippet obtained by Snopes confirmed it. In the wake of the Epstein story being revitalized by his arrest and death in 2019, Clinton has taken very conscious steps to distance himself from who he once called a highly successful financier and committed philanthropist. After all, Epstein's own lawyers asserted in court documents that Epstein was part of the original group that conceived the Clinton Global Initiative. The fun fact about the Clinton Global Initiative, by the way, is that they once endorsed the Terra Mar Project, an environmental NGO with the self-stated goal of conserving, protecting, and improving oceans, the original investigation into who founded the Terra Mar Project. That for whatever reason, prosecutors would rather throw the case instead of go after someone so well connected in the political world. I mean, after all, maybe some of these guys wanted jobs in higher places. They weren't exactly going to make any friends by throwing a prolific campaign donor behind bars for life. And one way of assuring Epstein would get a lighter sentence was by putting the case in front of a grand jury. The middle. A grand jury who, according to Curry, was only given part of the Epstein story by state prosecutor Lana Belovac. Earlier in 2009, Epstein was literally serving a jail sentence while at the same time the woman who helped him find victims these victims were actually not victims at all. They were drunks, through the open seas, but whatever, hell going on attacking. Let's take it back to 2002 when Landon they were nothing more than greedy prostitutes, according to both Epstein's extravaganza, seemingly Belovac visiting New York, Paris, Bangkok, Brunei, Norway, Morocco, Brussels, and need I go on, all in hopes of providing humanitarian aid for continents like Africa, spreading democracy, empowering the poor, and combating HIV and AIDS, according to a Clinton spokesperson shortly after the trip. Some of the other notable passengers on this famed international excursion included the likes of Chris Tucker and Kevin Spacey, who you can actually see sitting here on Queen Elizabeth's throne next to Ghislaine. According to the Daily Telegraph, they were taking a tour of Buckingham Palace led by Prince Andrew. I love recurring characters. In fact, despite Clinton originally insisting he had only taken 4 rides on the Lolita Express, flight logs indicate Clinton actually took at least 26 rides on Epstein's private jet shortly after leaving office between 2001 and 2003. An assertion that he still has not directly responded to. I wonder why that is. It's pretty out of character for him to lie to the American public, I think we all know. Virginia has never made any allegations of wrongdoing against Clinton himself, but her assertions do go a little further than what the former president has admitted to doing. Virginia stated in her sworn deposition that she personally met Clinton on Little St. James Island at least twice during her travels with Epstein, something that Clinton has long denied across the board, describing in her memoir an alleged dinner where there were only a few of us eating at the dinner table. There was Jeffrey at the head of it all, as always. On the left side was Emmy, another Epstein recruiter, Ghislaine, and I. Sitting across the table from us was Bill, with 2 lovely girls who were visiting from New York. Bill's wife, Hillary's absence from the night made it easy for his apparent provocative how can you not believe these girls? Teasing the girls on either side of him with playful pokes and brassy comments. There was no modesty between Belovac responded, we all finished our meals pictures of the girl holding a beer in her hand. She's underage and she's drinking. They're talking about smoking pot and drinking and sex on MySpace. This is problematic. Which Curry rightfully argued, tell me which teenager doesn't drink. Based on this criteria, you're telling me the only victim of he flew with Epstein more times, way more times than he originally cared to admit. But those same flight records also don't do a lot to imply he ever visited Little St. James. But along with Virginia's sworn deposition, we also have former Clinton aide Doug Band, who Clinton kept in his inner circle even after leaving the White House. Band himself has even flown on the Lolita Express with the former president, just to give you an idea of how close these two were. Band has also alleged for years that Clinton has in fact visited Little St. James, specifically in January of 2003. Band did not attend this alleged visit, as he told Vanity Fair it was one of the few trips he declined. It's worth noting the Clinton camp has provided detailed travelogue entries for the period in question that do not contain a visit, as Vanity Fair goes on to clarify. But then you have Steve Scully, a former employee of Epstein's in charge of the island's telecommunications for 6 years, who not only claimed to have seen Prince Andrew groping and kissing Virginia near a pool, he says, but also stated in the Netflix documentary Filthy Rich that he once witnessed Bill Clinton sitting on a porch on the island. Curry insisted the evidence Virginia only doubling down in the documentary with, I remember having dinner phone records there, and I never saw him do anything copies of written phone messages. He would just come clean about it, and even a high school transcript belonging to one of the victims was more than enough for a conviction. Not to mention at least 24 victims had been identified and interviewed by authorities at this point. For all intents and purposes, there was no valid reason for this not to be a slam dunk case, which makes what happened an even bigger travesty for all the girls traumatized at the hands of Epstein and his high-profile buddies. Once Dershowitz had officially taken the reins, Ryder described State Attorney Barry Krischer's apparent heel turn to the New Yorker, noting also in a deposition that at first Krischer said, "Let's go for it. This is an adult male in his 50s who had sexual contact with children." But once Dershowitz got involved, the tone and tenor of the discussions of this case with Mr. Krischer changed completely. After meeting with Dershowitz a few times, who went to nasty
a public event where they have to show up together, they just like don't hang out with one another.
The attorney in private, Krischer made a controversial move to pull together a grand jury who did successfully charge Epstein in 2006 with only solicitation of a prostitute. Only that wasn't even really scratching the surface of what Epstein was being accused of. Not only had Epstein solicited sex from way more girls than just one, like the charge asserted, Ricari later told Brown he felt the grand jury hadn't been given the full picture of the situation at all, and that Belalavik and Krischer were essentially resting the entire case on one victim's testimony.
Yeah, I mean, it's just classic defense to literally engage in the defamation or engage in attacks against like victims, no matter how young they are, referring to 14, 15-year-old girls as prostitutes is really fucked up, but it is also exactly what Alan Dershowitz got away with doing successfully.
Testimony, not even alluding to the almost 30 other girls that had accused Epstein in total. These were also children, mind you. The fact that this child victim was reduced to just a prostitute in this ruling should be criminal.
By the way, the criminal justice system directly convicted Jeffrey Epstein of a lowered case, a lowered sentence of procuring prostitution from minors, as in they also went along with this. Like, he was supposed to be initially charged with sex trafficking of minors and statutory rape of minors, like children. But instead, he was actually charged with the solicitation of prostitution, including from a minor, which is insane. Because the underlying implication there is like that the minor can somehow consent to working as a prostitute.
In itself. It goes without saying that Michael Ryder was furious, as anyone with a conscience would be. I mean, Epstein was released on just a $3,000 bond hours after the charge. Those at the Palm Beach PD who knew the extent—
Yeah, by the way, this is also, remember, when I first said Ghislaine Maxwell pardon watch, Ghislaine Maxwell is probably going to get pardoned. People in the chat said, there's no way, that's crazy. Limited immunity for Ghislaine is official from the Department of Justice, so remember that.
Of Epstein's crimes immediately slammed Krischer for giving Epstein special treatment. Ryder then called upon the FBI to open their own investigation. During what was called Operation Leap Year, the FBI began to compile even more mountains of evidence against the financier. For a while, it looked like Epstein might finally be sent away for good, until Alan Dershowitz reached a shocking non-prosecution agreement with U.S. Attorney for Miami, Alexander Acosta. This secret deal that took over a year to negotiate has been rightfully and viciously—
You don't think they'll commute her sentences? As yes, that's what's gonna happen.
Criticized.
I don't know exactly what kind of leniency or sentence commutation they will. I don't know what kind of power that they have, but yes, there will be. In my opinion, there will be a pardon or a sentence commutation, like some sort of benefits for her, some sort of leniency in the sentencing, some sort of adjustment to her sentence.
Giving Epstein basically all the leeway he could have asked for. Even Epstein's own attorneys called it unprecedented and highly unusual, just to give you a sense of how generous it was. Yes, it required him to plead guilty, but only to 2 state charges of procuring a minor for prostitution, which barely accounted for all the years' worth of evidence and testimony Palm Beach authorities and now the FBI had collected. He was required to register as a offender, but that was a small fee for avoiding what could have been a lifetime in federal prison. Instead, Epstein was only required to spend 13 months in what was essentially just a summer camp for rich people at the end of the day. I mean, he was still allowed to go into his office
12 hours a day. He was allowed to leave the prison, dude. 12 hours a day. That is unheard of for an offense like a sex offense against a minor. Sex offenders in general do not get to walk around freely, okay? Because a big part of why you are put behind bars is quite literally because you're a danger to additional victims. They were like, oh, you like diddling kids? Well, for 12 hours a day, you can keep doing that if you would like to.
During the day to complete work as long as he returned to his facility at night. Jail records show he would buy.
I met him in 2016 when I was lived up. Nice. Jean-Luc Brunel, a French modeling agent at Epstein Association, trafficked underage girls and later died in custody. Trump ran a modeling agency and owned pageants and where underage contestants were present. When Brunel was directly tied to trafficking, Trump's agency faced visa and exploitation scandals, including hiring underage models. Epstein also met one of the victims at Mar-a-Lago. The overlap raises questions. Is that ChatGPT that you went to? Because we've already covered all that. And yes, you are right. And the involvement that Trump and Epstein have go beyond that. It's even deeper than that.
Now, I don't think I have to tell you that Republicans with a hate boner for Clinton have absolutely done everything they can to emphasize his murky relationship with the billionaire, or millionaire. I guess we don't know how much Epstein was really worth. And I don't think there's anything wrong at all with bringing up those connections. I mean,
I think it's really funny that the Republicans actually point to the Epstein connection with Bill Clinton when in the exact same time frame, a person that was also a Democrat, by the way, a New York elite, was also just as involved, and sometimes even next to Bill Clinton, as a matter of fact. His name was Donald Trump. Now, at least with the Clinton family, they have long-standing continued relationships with Epstein and, Epstein's mansions. Like they went to the Zora Ranch a lot. And also on top of that, their connection to Ghislaine, like their public relationship with Ghislaine, goes far beyond Jeffrey Epstein being outed and being convicted as a sex criminal. Whereas for Trump, the paper trail kind of runs cold. So I don't know. I don't know how far it goes.
You should ask questions about it, especially when you consider Clinton has lied about it. But those on the right who only single out Bill Clinton's relationship with Epstein should probably look in the mirror.
Jeff Epstein. Hello, everyone. I'm back. Do you think my list will actually get released? So stupid.
Well, I knew him like everybody in Palm Beach knew him. I mean, people in Palm Beach knew him. He was a fixture in Palm Beach. I had a falling out with him a long time ago. I don't think I've spoken to him for 15 years.
As Landon Thomas wrote in his New York Magazine profile, Epstein likes to tell people that he's a loner, a man who's never touched alcohol or drugs, and one whose nightlife is far from energetic. And yet, if you talk to Donald Trump, a different Epstein emerges.
I've known Jeff for 15 years. Terrific guy.
Trump booms from a speakerphone.
He's a lot of fun to be with. It is even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do. And many of them are on the younger side, no doubt about it. Jeffrey enjoys his social life.
Sorry for doing the voice. I couldn't quote him and not do the voice. This quote, which again dates all the way back to 2002, is remarkable considering what Trump has said about Epstein more recently, assuring journalists in 2019 from the White House that
I was not a fan of his. That I can tell you. I was not a fan of his.
So was he just being a fake friend all along then? You were fake for 15 years? You said he was a good hang. Alan Dershowitz, who of course represented both men in court, told the New York Times that in those days, if you didn't know Trump and you didn't know Epstein, you were a nobody. I didn't even know this until researching this video, but apparently Epstein liked to say he was the one who introduced Donald Trump to Melania, according to Vanity Fair, which also reported in 2021 that Ghislaine kept up to 16 of Trump's phone numbers in the infamous Little Black Book. She would also invite the future president to dinners and events all over the state of New York, their most infamous get-together being caught on this now widely circulated video of an extremely coked up looking Trump clapping and dancing and whispering into the ear of Epstein, who he's not a fan of, by the way. The pair is standing in front of a swarm of young models at a private Mar-a-Lago party and seem to be having a grand old time. I'm sure you've seen the video, but what you may not know is that the same year this was filmed, Trump and Epstein held another private party in Palm Beach where 28 women were in attendance. The only men at this party, though, were Trump and Epstein, at least according to the man who supplied the women. George Haraney of American Dream Enterprises tells the New York Times that he actually warned Trump of Epstein's proclivities toward young women, asking Trump in disbelief, "You're telling me it's you and Epstein? I know Jeff really well, and I can't have him going after younger girls." While Haraney says he had to ban Epstein from events, Trump didn't care about that, a claim that goes directly against what one Trump campaign manager later said, which is that Trump did eventually stop letting Epstein hang around events because he was too creepy, which in my opinion is a little out of character for Donald Trump. It's hard to deny Trump's reputation with women, especially younger women, isn't exactly the greatest. There is definitely some indication that Trump was aware of the young girls in Epstein's vicinity. Some insight coming from his future White House aide, Roger Stone, who told the New York Times in an effort to defend Trump, I think, that the former president once said the swimming pool was filled with beautiful young girls. How nice, I thought. He let the neighborhood kids use the pool after seeing Epstein's home in Palm Beach. And to make matters even more strange.
What? Dude, as a fucking ball knower, I'm sometimes shocked when I find out new shit. Like that I don't remember. What an insane way to try and defend Donald Trump, dude. What an insane way to be like, oh yeah, Donald Trump saw little girls at the pool and he thought Jeffrey Epstein is so nice to allow the neighborhood little girls to go and use the swimming pool. Like he's just some fucking naive moron. Like as though that's gonna work at all. It's probably his way of pretending like he's doing a nice thing while intentionally throwing him under the bus. No, Roger Stone is big Trump booster loyalist.
Journalist Craig Unger concluded his Vanity Fair examination of Trump and Epstein's relationship with the following passage. An associate of Epstein's, who asked not to be identified, told me that Epstein showed him one photo of Trump with a topless young girl. In another, the source said Trump is with two girls who are said to be laughing as they point out what appears to be a wet spot in an unfortunate location on his pants. The description of the photo suggested that it was a semen stain, but the photos have never been released.
We need to see that photo. We need to see that photo instantly. I have to see it.
But by being in the news, it does feed into what Mark Epstein once reportedly heard from his older brother Jeff when it came to the 2016 election. As Mark told the New York Post recently, here's a direct quote: "If I said what I know about both candidates, they'd have to cancel the election. That's what Jeffrey told me in 2016. What that means exactly, we may never know." The two New York natives wouldn't stay friends forever though. While the exact reason for their split is still uncertain, it seemed to happen around 2005 when Epstein threatened to sue Trump over his purchase of a 65,000 square foot property Epstein had set his sights on, which was
I think given how much we've seen the leaks and Michael Wolff confirming that he saw the photo, we'll probably see Trump's pre-cum soon. Yes, that is a word. Those are a sequence of words that you probably thought you would never hear on the Hasanabi broadcast or anywhere, as a matter of fact. Those words are not in the Bible and certainly not in the Bible in direct sequence. We will eventually see Donald Trump's pre-cum photo, which I will be adding to my rare Trump collection. First in my bloodline to hear that sentence, by the way. Yep. Yep. The rarest of all Trumps. Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. With Trump ultra rare in an ultra rare position where there's pre-cum in his pants. Pre-cum Trump.
Was also once owned by Les Wexner, by the way, another fun fact. The thing never actually went to court, but it's been reported that Epstein himself once theorized that it was actually Donald Trump who tipped off local police in Palm Beach as a kind of retaliation for the threat. Sure, we know Trump is a petty guy, but authorities ultimately began looking into Epstein because of what young girls in
He's not just a petty guy, he might be a pedo guy too.
Community had been saying. Unfortunately for them, the efforts of these prosecutors would tragically prove pretty feckless.
Breaking news in the fallout from the 2008 plea deal involving Palm Beach County billionaire Jeffrey Epstein. Just hours ago, Labor Secretary Alex Acosta, as we've reported, vigorously defended his oversight of that plea deal.
Mr. Acosta is doing.
He also is a very weird looking dude. Right? Like, he's such a weird looking guy.
Everything he can to divert attention away from his own responsibility.
And tonight we are still waiting on a statement from former Palm Beach County State Attorney Barry Krischer.
So this video...
Yeah, someone said chopped. Alex Acosta was Chuz. He was chopped Huz, dude. Former labor secretary and the prosecutor that gave Jeffrey Epstein a sweetheart plea deal was chopped Huz.
Ended up being a lot longer than I originally planned. I'm afraid if we don't split this into multiple videos, we may not get to cover everything as extensively as I'd like. But you can expect part 2 to explore the horrendous plea agreement that allowed Jeffrey Epstein to avoid life in prison, along with the connections he maintained after he was a
Unk, you're 34? Yeah, and I'm chopped too, so I'm Chunk. Chopped Unk. Also known as Chunk.
Convicted sex offender, his second arrest in 2019, and of course, whether or not he truly killed himself in custody. That video should come out about a week after this one, if all goes.
All right, let's get to number 2 on the Jeffrey Epstein scandal and saga.
14.
To catch and release a predator, the Jeffrey Epstein saga part 2.
About 2 decades ago, authorities in Palm Beach, Florida began receiving tips of a middle-aged, enigmatic billionaire abusing underage girls in the community. At that time, Jeffrey Epstein already carried an unusual reputation. People knew he was someone with deep ties to the upper echelon of society, though not much was known about the exact nature of those connections, where he acquired all his wealth, and what was happening inside the walls of his 14,000 square foot palace. That is until it concerned parent.
I know Twitter thinks I'm 38 because of Dexterity Knox. Austin Knox has cooked me once again. Austin Knox has once again cooked me. Fuck it, man. I'm 50. I look great for 38. If I look this good at the age of 38, I will be so happy. Yes, I know Wall Street Journal let Abu Shabab, who is the head of the ISIS-affiliated gang, and the Israeli collaborator who created a new militia force called the Popular Forces, wrote a fucking editorial piece for the Wall Street Journal. I mean, after HTS, this should come as no surprise. Guys, we literally made a former Al-Qaeda commander the president of Syria. Okay? It does not matter. What the fuck, you're 38? No, I'm 34. A former Al-Qaeda commander is now the president of Syria. They took him off the terrorism watch list. And on top of that, like, yeah, Israel gets to work with whichever ISIS affiliate they want to. That means automatically that they're no longer bad. They're good now.
dialed 911 on March 14th, 2005, and expressed concern that her 14-year-old stepdaughter had received $300 in cash after a visit to a certain gentleman's house, as stated in the call that was later publicized in the Netflix documentary Filthy Rich. The girl, known only as Jane Doe 1 to police, had been bullied and was labeled a prostitute by other kids at Palm Beach Royal High after rumors of her and her friend giving Epstein a quote-unquote massage began circulating around the school, according to the Miami Herald journalist Julie K. Brown.
You're a victim at that point. Like, you're a victim. Not even at that point. You're just a victim, okay? God damn, dude. American high schools are so ruthless. It's like they were slut-shaming a victim of pedophilia. That's crazy.
As she wrote in her book, Perversion of Justice, an investigation...
Blackened Gem. Thank you for the 20 gifted subs.
Soon identified the cousin of Jane Doe's boyfriend, Haley Robson, as the 16-year-old who introduced her to the financier. Being one of his many teenage recruiters, Haley's job was to bring Epstein as many young victims as possible, telling People magazine that at 16, she had no idea what she was getting herself into, stating that she wasn't mature enough to understand the repercussions. Thinking to herself at the time, what am I gonna do next? Am I going to college? Am I gonna move? Am I gonna stay here? Etc. As she went on to testify,
Arrest Obama was this week's the red meat thrown to us in the media. It hasn't worked. Next week, Biden laptop, Maxwell pardon, Adam Schiff, anything but Epstein. Except the Maxwell pardon is a major fucking own goal. Because as Felix correctly points out, you know, none of it surprises me in a moral sense, but just in a practical sense, you'd figure someone would grab Trump by the shoulders and go, you are advertising that you ate an infant's spine on tape by offering limited immunity to a prolific sex trafficker, affiliate of Jeffrey Epstein. This time around, I was astounded by the independent media members who ignored Acosta Barr, the fact that all this happened during his first term, and a billion other aspects of his personal and political lives. Now they get the true Trump experience, holding a bag of shit, dumbfounded. I don't know what else to say. David Cage would write a game where the evil bad president does all of this, and then he'd take a look and go, nah, that's way too blatant and on the nose. Let's start over. He's branding so hard and he's surrounded himself with so many true believer sycophants that no one is willing to give him the talk. They're so into the idea that articles can't hurt them that they now think nothing they do has consequences. Any victory at all, even a 1.5% popular vote plurality win in a cost of living crisis election against a petrified candidate, means we can do whatever we want always. Yeah. Jesus Christ, Murat. U.S. government review found no evidence of widespread Hamas theft of Gaza aid. Oh, that's yeah. We'll get to that as well. But yeah, this is the no spin zone, baby. There's no spin zone, and by that I mean it is impossible. It is impossible for there to be any spin here because it's just so fucking ridiculous.
That if a victim refused his sexual advances, they were sometimes made to bring him other girls. The younger, the better, as Haley recalled him saying. This created a years-long pyramid scheme of abuse, as some have called it, and finally prompted the Palm Beach PD to begin an investigation. Spying on Epstein's house and taking note of the young girls who would visit the man at all hours of the day, after digging through his trash and finding concerning receipts for sex books, police obtained a warrant and discovered a high school transcript belonging to one of his accusers, along with a receipt for a dozen roses that he sent the same girl. As Detective Joseph Ricari told Brown, the house was exactly how the girls had described it, right down to the bizarre color of the furniture. Although police identified over 24 victims during this time, we know for a fact there were still many, many more out there. In fact, one of the reasons we still don't know the precise number of girls Epstein abused is because of an infamous plea deal that would come later. A deal that essentially quashed an ongoing FBI investigation that could have exposed the scope of Epstein's operation right then and there, which is enough to leave any victim feeling despondent and disrespected. They could have seen justice if it weren't in part for Epstein's team of seasoned lawyers working with the government to hammer out a highly controversial agreement on the pedophile's terms.
One of the disappointed lawyers who pressed for release of the FBI Epstein dealings said the treatment went way beyond preferential.
Because they don't have to. there's no law or statute that says that the justification for a plea negotiation has to be actually written in there. It doesn't have to be written in there, and it really is something that we may never know, because it really is what came out of all of their negotiations.
What was so important to the government that sex crimes described in this agreement were treated so lightly?
Now, I would suggest you go ahead and watch part 1 of this series if you haven't already, as it sort of sets the groundwork for who Epstein was by 2005, the connections he had already made, and what victims had been saying about him from as early as 2002. This video will consist of everything that came after, as I'll try to explain to the best of my abilities how and why Epstein was allowed to continue abusing girls for nearly a decade after his short stint in prison.
The court docket with his name on it lists a string of delays and continuances. That speaks to a deal in the works.
Now, if they can't make this go away, then they're going to minimize the damage. And that's what happened here. It's probably going to be damage control to have the shortest amount of prison time, the least amount of harm to him.
But before we go any further here, I do want to go ahead and thank today's sponsor, Aura. If you've ever Googled yourself, you may be alarmed to see a shocking amount of your own personal information, like your name or email address, exposed online for the entire world to see. Shady data brokers are known to sell your information to scammers, spammers, or to anyone else who may want to target you. Thankfully though, Aura shows you exactly which brokers are selling your information and can submit opt-out requests on your behalf. It helps reduce the amount of
Edward says he's fighting to have the federal plea deal for Epstein tossed out.
So the link is already no longer working, most likely.
And a new prosecution launched.
You are blocking Kaya's view. I apologize for the egregious crime of blocking Kaya from view. You should get a more comfortable chair. My chair is literally the Bentley, the Bugatti of fucking computer chairs. Literally, I think the best possible computer chair that anyone could have is not just like a regular Herman Miller. It's the Logitech Herman Miller collab. Socialist, by the way, yeah. You want to know what's really fucked up? I got it for free. They gave it to me for free. Isn't that crazy? The rich get richer, baby. Let's go. I mean, I would have bought it regardless. This is something that I spend a fuck ton of time on. All right, bro. Big flex on chat. Relax. Nah, sometimes I got to let you know so that all my haters can clip it and be like, fucking piece of shit fake socialist says he's rich. Says he's rich. He says he's rich.
West Palm Beach Congresswoman Lois Frankel is calling for a congressional investigation.
When it comes to the Epstein plea deal, there's a small cast of characters we'll need to introduce. You had the Dersh, of course, but Epstein also brought on legal powerhouse Kenneth Starr to his all-star defense team. No pun intended there, I just realized how that sounds though. Starr, who rose to prominence when he uncovered the Clinton-Lewinsky scandal that led to the former president's impeachment, was also a member of the Federalist Society along with fellow Epstein attorney Jay Lefkowitz. The Federalist Society, as Brown points out in her book, is accredited with producing 6 Supreme Court justices, most notably Samuel Alito, who also just so happens to be Alexander Acosta's old mentor, a guy who, most famously, became known for personally approving the abhorrent plea deal, which adds to the idea that, as lead detective on the Epstein case, Joseph Ricari told Brown, a lot of the prosecutors who should have been on the side of the victims found themselves weirdly enamored by those who made up Epstein's impressive defense team, adding the amount of evidence that disappeared or was covered up in this case was mind-boggling, referring to a horde of Epstein's computers and hard drives that mysteriously went missing upon a raid of his home. Not the last time this would happen, by the way. In fact, he and Michael Ryder at the time.
Dude, just a sequence of real crazy coincidences, dude. Please don't ever say